usual, with you about market updates. Today we're going to be going over the central bank's week next week. We're all be gathering and discussing making decisions about their interest rate change in the next week, and we're going to share about market projections for their interest rate decisions and explore the potential impacts. And the Fed is expected to be the last ad of this whole interest rate hike cycle, and from raising interest rates to 5.25% to 5%, while the market is currently expecting both the Fed and ECB to raise rates by 25 basis points this week. The bigger focus will be on the signals from policymakers on whether future rate hikes are possible or whether they plan to extend the pause. The BOJ is likely to remain an exception, with more than 80% of analysts polled expecting BOJ Governor Kazuo Ueda to continue inject easing some support into the world's largest economy, although inflation remains above the 2% target. Fed will announce its July interest rate decision at 2 a.m. Beijing time on Thursday, and Fed Chairman Jerome Powell will hold a press conference at 2:30 in half an hour as usual. The Fed is widely expected to raise interest rates by 25 basis points this week to a range of 5.25% to 5.5%, which would also be the 11th rate hike in the past 16 months. The July rate hike will come after a pause in June. The Fed's aim at the time was to slow the pace of rate hikes when they approached the level that was considered sufficient to bring inflation back to its 2% target over time. But despite this, Powell and other policymakers want to show firmness and reserve the option of raising interest rates again if necessary to avoid another spike in prices. Therefore, although the Fed's resumption of interest rate hikes after the hawkish pause in June was also attracting attention, the bigger focus of the market may be the Fed's next move. That is, will this month be the last Fed rate hike? Will the next rate hike expected by the Fed's June dot plot still exist? And the latest pricing in the interest rate market shows the probability of a 25 basis point rate hike by Fed this week has reached almost 100%, while the swap market expects less than a third of chance of another rate hike this year, well below the probability of more than 50% earlier this month. The ECB will announce its July interest rate decision at 8:15 Beijing time on Thursday, and the President Lagarde will hold a press conference on monetary policy at 20:45. Quite similar on the situation of the Fed, with a 25 basis point rate hike almost certain this week. All eyes will be on how Lagarde describes the ECB's policy plan after July. The focus of the market is on the prospect of another rate hike by the ECB at a subsequent meeting. For some time, ECB officials have stressed that decisions will be made based on data received, and September will be the first month which they really stick and implement this idea. ECB policymakers have raised deposit by 400 basis points since last July, and economists polled by the media expects two more 25 basis point rate hike in July and September, which will bring deposit rate to a peak of 4%. BOJ will announce its interest rate decision at noon Beijing time on Friday, and Governor Kazuo Ueda will hold a monetary policy press conference at 14:30 on the same day. With the recent gradual rise in Japan inflation, there has been speculation that the Bank of Japan may soon readjust or phase out its controversial yield curve control policy. However, the possibility of Bank of Japan acting rashly this week seems unlikely. Bank of Japan Governor Kazuo Ueda said on Tuesday that Japan is still a long way from consistently achieving the central bank's 2% inflation target. After his remarks, the market's talk about the bank's policy adjustment this month cooled significantly. BOJ watchers now believe that unless there are surprises this week, the most likely time for any action by the BOJ when the next quarterly inflation forecast is released at the October meeting. That's all I have for today. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next episode.